What's up, guys? So thank you for joining us today on our Phase live stream featuring Double Zero. We're going to be talking to Eden and Austin about what they've been up to since they launched on mainnet. And I'll be joined by Chris here, my fellow host. Before we bring them on stage, we're just going to play a little bit of a video to give you guys an idea on what Double Zero actually is.
What about this internet thing? Do you know anything about that?
Sure.
Have you ever had a dream that
Goodbye.
The act of making something with a great deal of care and love.
What we are building is a high-performance new internet.
Double Zero recently started up to foster the development of network acceleration technologies. We are eager adopters.
Double rainbow. Oh my God.
That video is so good. I feel like I just watched like a Christopher Nolan film. Honestly, like
Never gets old.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, it was crazy. We could get him to direct it. It was really unexpected.
he's like, yeah, no, definitely. I'll jump off my following project just to help you guys out. No, but for real, it's such a good video. I feel like it gives such a good, like kind of story of what you guys are trying to achieve. And it's just, yeah, it's fully epic. But we're super stoked to have you guys on the show. Thank you again for joining us. Yeah, honestly, this is our biggest. You guys are our biggest guests that we've had on Phase Live so far. So yeah, it's pretty cool. How are you guys doing? How's things your side of the world?
Yeah, good. Busy building a new internet. Something new every day, but yeah, I think things are going well.
Awesome. Well, I think we can dive a little bit into you guys before we get into some of the questions. But just interestingly enough, like obviously, Austin, super crazy journey that you've had, starting in your Solana Foundation days. You've been a really recognizable voice for Solana. And I have to just say as well, probably one of my favorite interviews you've ever done was the one on, the Banked podcast where you went against ETH and so on. Honestly, dude, that's one of my favorite podcasts. Yeah, it was unbelievable. The points you made and just that entire, debate was just incredible. And then obviously, Eden comes from a very prolific work history as well. Working for companies like Jump as well previously, did you not, Eden?
Yeah. I started my crypto career actually at Jump Crypto. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I mean, honestly, both of you have been, trailblazing these last few years. And I guess a little interesting thing just to kind of, since we have both of you on the show, how did you guys meet and how did you start working together on Double Zero?
Yeah.
I forget. When did we first? It was when you were at Jump.
Right.
Back in 21.
Probably somewhere in the pit along the way. It's one of these hackathon events. But I remember like just every conference, Austin and I would meet up for dinner or lunch, just like kind of catch up. And then all kind of culminated to one brunch in New York where we were doing a catch up. And, Austin was telling me about what he's building at Double Zero. And, I think just everything for me just kind of aligned in that moment to like, oh, this is the project that I'm supposed to be working on. And it was super clear. So yeah, at that point, made the jump onto the team. This was back in like January, February, but yeah, I think that's probably like my recollection, but yeah, I think we just crossed paths a lot over the last few years.
Yeah, it's there's not many people working in comms and marketing that are like any good. I really like, this is like a very macro statement. It's not just crypto related. It's hard to find people who are like good and competent at this and in it for the right reasons, because I think a lot of times like you have this problem with like PMs often too and like this is like very true of like HR roles is oftentimes you have people who sort of failed into the job in some capacity. It's like, oh, they were trying to be, you know, I mean, this happens to a lot of different groups, but it's like, oh, they were trying to be a certain thing, but they couldn't get it. And so they sort of came into this avenue instead. And so when you find people that are like actually like quite talented in it not because it's like, oh, I couldn't be an engineer, so I decided to go be a PM or something. When you find people who are doing it for the right reasons, like you should try and hire them is generally my approach to this thing. Because there's so many, I mean, especially like I have worked with probably 30 people over my career in comms roles, and maybe 5 of them have been good. You know, it's another one of those roles that's really like you can be like a mid-grade to low-grade engineer and you can still add a bunch of value to a project, right? There's like whether it's like QA testing or whatever, like there's a lot of roles that are that can still make a difference as an engineer. If you are not on it from a comms or marketing perspective, especially in crypto, like you do more damage than you do help. As many instances of, I mean, Silicon Valley Bank is the ultimate example of how a comms person can do more damage than help.
I mean, I love that you gave that. I love that you gave that breakdown, because I think the reason why I ask is because the space is kind of just, it's such an interesting place where you can basically start with almost no prior knowledge to what the product is that you're marketing, right? Especially in this kind of field, right? Like what you guys are doing, right? And Eden, over the years, you worked at these different kind of crypto companies, and you know, even myself coming into crypto, I didn't know anything about the technology sector, but it's like, I don't know, you just kind of like, you rub, after enough time, you get enough of this knowledge rubbed off on you. And obviously, as you were saying, Austin, like a few people are able to break the mold and also get out and not just be like posting the same thing on Twitter every day, or, KOL, group on marketing agency or whatever. And it really is like that ability to be able to communicate ideas, especially complex ideas, especially like what you guys are doing is extremely valuable and is so needed, because otherwise, how do you explain this to the rest of the world outside of just the small kind of crypto community that we have and the mission that you're trying to achieve? That's why I love IBRL. Like you guys did an amazing job with that. Like it's just and even the logo, I know it is kind of a mistake in some ways, but we'll get into that also a little bit later. I know there's a good question coming up for Eden there in regards to that. But I guess biggest thing, right, is to start off somewhat light. Could you give us a high level overview of what sparked the idea for 00 in the first place? Like, why does the blockchain need its own internet? Why is crypto thinking too small in terms of TPS, so on and so forth?
So going back to maybe late 2021, early 2022, the Solana Foundation, when we were kicking around the idea of Firedancer, which was this attempt to build a new validator client for the Solana blockchain that could support 1 million transactions per second. And at the time, the existing client from Solana Labs there was really solid components there, but the whole thing just wasn't together. There was a ton of issues with it on the networking side of things. And to their credit, most of that's actually been corrected. And now Agave, the new name of the old Solana Labs client, is nearly as performant, if not more performant in some situations than Firedancer. So that's a whole separate sidebar on success stories, which is like, I think worth getting into at some point too. But one of the main components that we sort of kept hearing from engineers working on this is we can build a validator client that can do 1 million transactions per second, but it won't work over the public internet. Yeah. And there was sort of this like, okay, well, why are we building this thing if we're not going to be able to use it to its full potential? And there was sort of this like hand waviness of like, the internet will eventually get faster. Like it's a tomorrow problem. We have to build the thing today. And you see this with pretty much every blockchain out there. The testnet is always much more performant than the mainnet. And why is that? Well, there's a lot of reasons that are software related about how synthetic load is different than real world load. But one of the core components there is these testnets are running in very controlled networking environments usually. They're either all run in GCP or AWS, or they're in the same data center, or at least there's no competition going through the systems. And so it's kind of like when you get like a new Wi-Fi router and it's like 4.3 gigabits per second of connectivity. And you're like, why is my Zoom call not working great then? It's like the real world is very different than the lab. And so 00 really is an attempt to make the real world much more similar to the lab. And this is not some groundbreaking, crazy idea no one's had before. This is how all of traditional finance works. They all run over private dedicated networks. This is how the Web 2 world works. They all run on private dedicated networks as well. It's the idea of 00 was like, quite simply, could we build a high performance global network that has the characteristics of a private network, but is not run by one party? It has multiple contributors to it. It has all of the cryptographic assurances that you'd want if you're going to look at running blockchain systems over this, so 00 does not become a centralizing force. And that idea was sitting around kind of in my head and a few other people's heads for a few years, but it really was not something that was practical or actionable until I met Matteo Ward and Andrew McConnell, my co-founders, who come from this world. And Andrew he worked on the exchange side, then he worked on the trading firm side. In both situations, he built and managed networks for these various applications. He built the entire Jump high frequency trading network with his team. Matteo has owned and operated carriers and high frequency trading services over his career. And so, they didn't know anything about crypto, but they brought with them this interest and this desire to learn about it, as well as this deep expertise in how to build for these high performance systems. And that's basically where 00 came from.
I mean, it's incredible. It's such an amazing group as well, Obviously, I had the pleasure of meeting you and Eden. I don't think I've met Matteo and your other co-founder as well, but I think I'll be seeing you guys in Argentina for the staking summit. So I'll see you there. But no, that's awesome. I mean, it's kind of just seems like everything came together, the right people at the right time. And yeah, I mean, it's someone needed to do it, right? So, happy you guys are taking up that mantle and attempting what may have seemed the impossible, but you guys are making it seem pretty possible, honestly. So also you guys officially went live on mainnet on October 2nd, and you guys had about 22% staked then, and now I think you have about 36% of Solana staked.
Yep.
What have you guys been up to since then? I assume obviously it's always craziest after the launch, right? The build up is crazy, but after the launch is even crazier. Work just gets started.
Yeah, just a quick qualifier. We are in mainnet beta. Well, I wish we were in full mainnet. That is coming soon. But yeah, I think just the priority lately has, just obviously been building out the network. We've expanded probably like 15 to 20 new fiber links since the launch, as well as, onboarding validators to the projects. But the focus from here is, continue to expand the network, onboard individuals, but also kind of build out these features that are just not possible on the public internet. So a few of those include multicast, FPGA edge filtration, which we can dive into any of those if you want. But I mean, like we've essentially stood up a new internet. So that's happened. But I think now, we have the next steps of kind of like proving out the value of private networking and high performance dedicated networks for blockchain systems specifically.
So when you say setting up those fiber links, how are you guys setting that up exactly? Are you adding your own links in data centers around the world, or are you actually building out new infrastructure? Or what does that look like?
Yeah, so go ahead, Austin.
No, I was gonna say, so one of the core components here is we don't actually run the fiber links ourselves. Similar to how Solana does not run validators on Solana, Ethereum Foundation does not run Ethereum validators. So these are all fiber links contributed by various different companies. So there's 11 contributors at the moment. And sometimes it's people who have ownership of fiber lines. Sometimes it's people who have long-term leases on the fiber. And so they contribute it the same way that like some people own their validator, some people rent it from TerraSwitch or Latitude. And so that's kind of the basic formula of how this all works. They install the 00 software on these sort of high performance switches. It allows them to program their fiber links into the network, for lack of a better term. If you go to 00.xyz/dashboard, you can actually see all of the 70 plus fiber links for the network live. And there's about 2.5 terabits per second of capacity on the network at this point.
That is incredible.
Yeah, we should actually pull up the dashboard if it's possible.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to do that right now. Let's see. So the reason I ask is I think there's always that like, it's like people are like, oh, are they also like putting cables under the sea as well, or like I assume at some point you guys want to be doing something like that as well, right? Like it's just cool to also see that it's like, hey, this layer there is this internet infrastructure already there around the world. We're tapping into that, and then I assume the idea is also to expand upon that as needed, right? As you guys obviously grow and maybe need more of these links or whatnot. But I mean, this is such an awesome view. Me accept.
Yeah. You can click and drag it around. You can see the rest of the world on there.
Sick.
Yeah.
That is so rad.
Yeah. So like building a new fiber line is under the sea is extremely expensive. I hope someday the protocol is valuable enough that we can spend $120 million or $400 million and build a link across the Atlantic or the Pacific. But realistically, there's a lot easier access ways into it. Most cables that are built nowadays are jointly financed by several different parties. And so it might be like, Facebook puts up 80% of the capital, but then there's 20% available for others to put in. And so, you could see something like the foundation or some DAO or something in the future saying, hey, we're actually going to take like a 10% ownership stake in this cable and therefore get 10% of the speed of that cable dedicated to the 000 network. 10% of a subsea fiber cable can be more data per second than the entire 000 network currently has. So when you get into like real big boy cable system numbers, like what these are, like maybe this might be a little too deep, so let me know if this is like not interesting. But what these are right now is there's an undersea cable that maybe has 6 or 8 or 12 different pieces of fiber, basically like strands of glass in the system. And then there's basically lasers on either end of that blast data back and forth. And each of those operates at a different wavelength. And so nowadays you can fit about 100 on the really good stuff, like 160 or so wavelengths of light over the same individual piece of glass. And that wavelength can carry 100 gigabits per second, 400 gigabits per second, 800 gigabits per second on the new stuff. And so even these cables that were laid 20 years ago, they just keep upgrading the optics on either side. And so they're still usable. This is not like an iPhone where it's like 18 months afterwards, you're like, this thing's really slow. Like physical technology in the physical transport medium can be used for many, many, many years. And that's part of why there's just a lot more fiber links that have gotten built over the last 10 years. And so the cost of doing something like the 000 network went from something that was like pretty infeasible to something that actually like is economically possible now.
Yeah,
That's so
so
cool.
in simple terms, you can think of this as like, this is like not a perfect analogy. So like, don't use this as like, verbatim. You can pretty much think of 000 as like Airbnb for fiber capacity in the same way that you have an additional room in your house that's like underutilized per se. You can like rent it out, someone can use it. These companies also have fiber cables that are underutilized, or to Austin's point, just not being used to their full capacity. So 000 just takes advantage of that to ensure that, that fiber is being used and connects it through these 000 devices around the world, which ultimately creates the network. But yeah, maybe that's a simpler way to understand it. But yeah, honestly, I didn't know about the differences in fiber capacity. So I always learn something new from Austin every day.
That was dope. Austin, I want to hear more about lasers, dude. I hear lasers. I'm like, oh, that's
Everyone
sick,
loves
dude.
lasers, man.
Everyone loves lasers, No, but that's awesome. It's cool to kind of like get that image in your mind of actually like how these cables working and whatnot. And exactly, obviously there's this like open, or there's available space for you guys to use and
Yeah.
So
And
I think
none of it is like unused capacity, right? Like, so to Eden's kind of thing is like, it's not like any of these fiber networks are truly unutilized or something along those lines, but what they are is they're available, right? And so there's a ton of planning that goes into kind of how someone thinks about this stuff, and it's pretty interesting, I would say. I think that when we look at kind of like how these networks grow and evolve, one of the assumptions that we've sort of always had, or many people have always had, is that the fundamental capacity of the public internet will keep getting better. And it's not exactly true. Like we have Moore's law for CPUs and for operations per second.
Yeah.
We don't really have that in networking. So if you think about it, 12 years ago in New York, you get a 1 gigabit internet connection. You can get a 2 gigabit internet connection now. But the amount of data that we send over the internet is orders of magnitude more than it was that many years ago. And so the public internet can't really keep pace with what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. It's kind of like from a validator perspective, right? It's like, okay, originally the network wasn't able to act as performantly or as fast without 00 as what it's trying to achieve now, because everyone's running a validator in different data centers, and they're obviously all connected to their internet providers that they have, right? But what you guys are doing is you're like, hey, well, we're giving you a direct line to these fiber cables. So you're not just, now that we're kind of cutting out the middleman in a way, in some way, and we're giving you direct access. Or is that how that speed is increased via you guys? It's now you're not just reliant on these data centers and whatever internet they have access to.
Yeah, so you can sort of think about this. It's very similar to what happened with the cloud transformation, where if you go back to the days before the cloud, big companies ran their own data centers or their own sections in a data center. And many companies still do that today, but it was very expensive and you had to be of a certain scale for it to make economic sense. You could always call up a guy and say, I need 40 servers. And, 4 weeks later, they'd have them all racked. They'd have them all plugged in. Here's your credentials. Here you go. Log into your servers. The revolution of Amazon was not as much that they were saying, we're going to give you 40 servers. Like, you always could get that. It's that we're going to give you 40 servers with a credit card without talking to anyone 30 seconds after you place the order. And also, if your server dies, we're going to dynamically move, the containerized. And so there was a real technology innovation that happened for these types of applications in the cloud, but really it was a business model change. Yeah. And so today, again, nothing 00 is doing is not possible with a $200 million budget, right? If you are DRW or Citadel or Jump Trading or Facebook or, Amazon or something like that, you can go out and you can buy access to the exact same fiber lines that 00 has contributed to it. But you're gonna have to hire a team of 4 to 8 people to manage it all, and you're gonna have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on all the CapEx and OpEx build out to make this thing actually viable and work. And so that entry price point is just completely inviable for the majority of folks out there. Also, in the case of blockchain, like, who's going to pay for that? The Solana Foundation's going to build a network, and then suddenly they're the one single centralized actor running the entire network for Solana, and then Aptos is going to want to do the same thing, and they're going to build their own parallel network, and then Filecoin's going to build their own. No, like, this stuff makes way more sense as a consortium model where everyone is collaborating to build a new network that's faster than the public internet. And that's really the goal and mission of 00 here, is to create this new high performance network, basically build a new internet faster than what the public internet can support, with technologies that also are not available on the public internet.
Yeah. And I mean, the idea is obviously to also, as you said, like, you can't have one singular entity, like a blockchain, or like one singular blockchain trying to do this thing. That's why as 00, you guys can actually also expand across networks over time, and it becomes more of a collaborative effort, and there isn't any kind of like bias. I mean, I guess I'm sure you've run into the thing of like, well, you used to work at Solana. It's like, well, it doesn't mean anything, right? Like, lots of people have worked at big companies, but it doesn't mean that they are now only going to favor that one place, right? Like, it's more so there's a bigger mission, there's a bigger opportunity here to improve things for everyone, and you've obviously proven that you as a team as well, like where your incentives are and what you're trying to achieve. So yeah, I think that's awesome and very admirable as well. But Eden, I think you wanted to say something. I might have cut you off there.
Yeah, I was going to pull the physics string a bit. Austin mentioned Moore's law, but I think another applicable law to kind of consider that I think Kevin Bowers talks about a lot is Amdahl's law. So essentially, like, an overall system is only as strong as its slowest part, right? So like, blockchain as it stands right now is only as fast as the public internet, which has now kind of become the bottleneck. So if you think about like the overall tech stack, I think this is like a good way to imagine like how you communicate different things, is like thinking about the different layers of the technological stack and how it all works together. So 00 is operating at the very bottom of the entire stack. So if we think about, that's the internet's the bottleneck, and that's where 000 is sitting too. If we address that, then like everything above it gets faster. So I think like that's another important way to think about this, of like, we're on a mission not only to accelerate Solana, like that's the priority in the short term, but to accelerate blockchain in general. And this is base layer neutral infrastructure. It's applicable to any blockchain and eventually every distributed system. But yeah, I mean, like the reality is like, we will not be able to compete with Web 2 or, traditional finance and reach these ambitious goals that we have on the public internet. It's just not going to be possible. We've seen these private networks are, capable of being built, and like the level of performance that they do bring. And so we're just trying to make that performance, low latency networking available to blockchain.
Yeah, something, from what you said there, so it makes me think also just about blockchain in general, and how like these kinds of projects are, I wouldn't say necessarily super commonplace, but just these kinds of like big ideas and things like, as you say, like we can't compete with the Web 2 side, but it's like, right, Web 3 is building its own whole new world, like, right? That's obviously trying to be better than the previous one, in the sense that like, this is achievable in this world that we have, right? And then once we get big enough, it can expand outward to this other larger one, right? Like Web 2 and that kind of bubble. But it's kind of hard to get these ideas moving there, because it's like, I guess you can look at it's like late stage capitalism kind of stuff, like, I don't know, things aren't as accessible and as easy as before. There's a lot more kind of barriers and gates, and it becomes a lot harder to innovate and do things because there's so much more red tape, right? Where in crypto and Web3, like we have this opportunity to actually get past these things and kind of like start a new entrepreneurial revolution, or a new kind of like capitalistic revolution, and like, hey, everyone, build something interesting, build something new, try and break down the barriers that we have in place. But I guess also talk about you guys and what you're doing with how you're supporting validators, right? Like you guys are really pushing for geographic distribution as well. Obviously, you want to increase like the speed around the world, right? And through this, you're supporting validators with the 000 stake pool, obviously as they connect to the network. So I don't know if Eden or Austin, you want to dive a little bit into the 000 stake pool, how that helps validators, and what they can expect when being involved with 000.
Yeah, so validators that join 000, they're getting access to this higher level of connectivity than they can get over the public internet. And right now we're sort of, you could think about it as like different types of systems have different types of cold start problems. And so ours is sort of this like, the RPCs, which will benefit tremendously from faster ability to get blocks to validators and transaction inclusion, they need the validators to be on the network. And the validators need the RPCs on the network to receive stuff to make it worth joining the network, right? This is sort of your classic cold start problem. Jito went through this exact same thing of like, you need both systems simultaneously to grow and expand. And so part of this is we run this 000 stake pool. And what that is basically a pool of SOL that gets delegated out to Solana validators that join. And this is part of the way we're overcoming a bit of a cold start problem on the network. And so what 000 asks of participants is 5% of block rewards as the fee for utilizing the network. And so stake pool helps kind of smooth that fee out a bit for folks joining. But our long-term goal here, which is I think pretty viable, is that validators will pay an extremely low amount to be on the network, because the real cost over the long term is borne by the traders and the business users of the 000 network. Plus, there's expansion out to many different types of networks as well. As I mentioned, this is not a Solana only protocol. We're Solana first in the sense of Solana's got the biggest problem and the biggest opportunity. And, if you can nail the hard thing first, everything else is a little bit easier. So that's very much where we decided to start. But the expansion out from there will be pretty interesting to see too.
I love that you mentioned that like Solana is the hardest, and not to deviate, but it's the same with us and our tax tool Netrunner that we've been building. Right?
Yeah.
Like, we focus purely on Solana, and we're like, hey, let's do that better than everyone else. And then we'll move to the next chain and the next chain. Because again, it's like that thing where you're just trying to do too much. When you're trying to be everything for everyone, you're nothing for no one, right? Like you're just trying to it just doesn't work. And once you perfect something, then you can move on and improve it. But I guess then that also leads into a little bit of like, from a technical standpoint, like what would you say is maybe one of the biggest misconceptions about like that you guys have seen with 00, right? And that can be from validators and from just community and from what you've seen online.
Let's see. So one of them is that we run the fiber. That's a big one, right? Like there's sort of this idea that like this can't be a blockchain protocol. It's physical fiber infrastructure, and we're like, no, it actually can. Like this is the real power and one of the really cool things about the network. So that's one that we've seen. Another I would say is that like the system today is showing its full potential. That's another big one, is because these systems are network effect systems, and so the higher percentage of validators you get on the system, the higher the aggregate throughput and performance is overall. And so we have not turned on like the FPGAs yet. Like multicast is a very cool technology, is not yet functioning on the it's on testnet but not on mainnet yet. So this is really just the beginning. Eden, I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff that you have in your mind too.
Yeah, I was also thinking just like the placement of where 00 sits in the overall like tech stack for blockchain. So it's, we're not on like the same level as like where the blockchain sits. It's actually like way, way, way beneath that. So, components like edge filtration, which is not live yet, but will be happening before it even reaches the validator. The transaction even reaches the validator. On the blockchain. So I think it's just an important distinction to know kind of like where this fits into the overall stack, which I talked a little bit about before, but I think that would be the main one. And then just kind of to double down on Austin's point, like, yes, we are in mainnet beta, which is just an important differentiator of like, it's very early. We are a little bit over 30 days in and have about 36% of Solana stake operating over 00, which is awesome. But this is a network effect. So ultimately, like, we're trying to speed up the performance for everyone, and the way that we can do that is to have everyone on board and to just make Solana faster at the end of the day. So that's what everyone wants. So
let's maybe dive a little bit into multicast. So how does multicast work, and what does that do?
I'll Austin take this one.
Yeah, sure. So multicast is a very cool technology. It's hardware acceleration for packet replication. And effectively what this does is it allows the process of sending data out to go from the validator's responsibility to the network's responsibility. And this has existed in traditional finance systems for decades at this point. You've probably run into multicast, a version of it in your daily life. It is how AirPlay sends one copy of music from your phone to multiple speakers in your house. Chromecast works the same way. Sonos works the same way. It really offloads a ton of the work from the sender to the network layer itself. This is really important for blockchain because it means that state propagation can happen much more fairly and much more quickly. Every validator that joins the network is effectively a bandwidth tax on the network, and every RPC is the same thing, which is why there's all these private systems like Shredstream on Jito, and Helios has one as well, that folks use to distribute data around because it's a big ask from the protocol side. So multicast can massively reduce the amount of bandwidth a validator needs to send data around, and it can improve how quickly that data gets out to people. Multicast is also not something you can run on the public internet. It requires a homogeneous, high-performance private network to be able to run it. And so, running this on 00 is no small feat because, as we mentioned, we are not a single-party network. There are multiple folks and entities involved in running this network. And so this is, to our knowledge, the first multi-party multicast network that anyone's ever built at this scale. Which is very, very cool to see. I think over the long term, this is going to become like one of the key differentiating factors between what 00 can offer and what other types of high-performance private networks are able to offer.
So multicast is starting with like a small group of validators. Is that how you guys are going to kind of like build it up so you can kind of test it out? Or are you guys just going to go like with everyone who's on 00 can start using multicast? Like, are you going to slowly roll it out, or what's the kind of idea there?
Yeah, so we're starting it in some limited testing environments. So Jito Shred Stream is one of the first things that we're bringing multicast to, because that's a more controlled system. But the short order goal is to get this integrated into the FireDancer and Agave clients and have this be a pathway that validators can send data out the same way they send it out via Turbine. They can also send it out via multicast. And the advantage of this is, like, if you think about it, if I'm running like a watcher node, a listener node, something that is just like, I'm an indexer, it's an NFT indexer, or I'm a market maker and I want to just pull in all of the state changes from Solana, I can now just basically tune into this multicast feed if I'm on the 00 network. And it's very similar to like satellite television or FM radio, where you can have 1 billion people listening to the same FM radio broadcast or one person listening to the radio broadcast, and the tower is still doing just as much work. That's not the case with an IP network, right? Like, why did it take us 15 years to figure out how to stream the Super Bowl? It's because every single person streaming the Super Bowl, a server needs to be sending them data manually. It's not like they just send out one copy of the Super Bowl and it magically gets to all the places it needs to go. That is how it works in traditional broadcasts, but that's not how the internet was built. Because the internet was never assumed to be that type of broadcast system when it was being architected. That's kind of one analogy to think about some of the advantages multicast brings, but you can see this applying to all sorts of things. So if you dug into the Alpenglow architecture, they have this thing called voter and rotor. And voter is this system where you basically send a bunch of signatures around. And once you get enough signatures, you say, hey, the block's built. This is called a signature aggregation system, to overly simplify this stuff. You can multicast all of that. And so suddenly, votes are this very tiny bit of data, but it's got to get to every validator as quickly as possible. So you multicast out the votes, and suddenly, like, multicast is not just one to many. It's many individuals broadcasting to the entire collective at the same time. So like the very simple model of this is like, I have a server and I'm sending data to like 1,000 people. But what if I instead have 1,000 servers that all have to send data to 1,000 people? Multicast is actually perfect for this. And so it's not just that like one validator has to broadcast data to many, it's that everyone can be basically broadcasting data at the same time to these multicast groups, and the network manages getting the data all the places it needs to go.
Okay, I think this is basically just offloading some of the work, right? It's just reducing the load.
A huge amount of the work. It's
a huge amount of the work. Okay, yes. Awesome. Is it? Can you think of it almost as like does it go to a singular place and then stream out of the multicast?
No, this is the beautiful part about multicast. Is it actually there's no like multicast server that everything gets aggregated in and then sent out from. It's literally like if like, for example, if this call were multicasted and there's 700 people watching or something like that, if this was all run on a multicast system, my computer would only be sending it once. And then the network would send it out to all of the 4 or the 3 of you and all of the viewers basically at exactly the same time. Instead, what happens in this architecture is my video and your video and Eden's video and Chris's video all goes to the same server, and then that server sends it back to us and then also sends it out to everyone watching. And that's why if you watch a live stream, relative to what we're talking now, the live stream is always slightly delayed. There's this like 10, 15, 20 second delay or so on the live stream. It's pretty
long. It's actually crazy. Yeah.
It's crazy long because a lot of this processing has to happen. They have to encode the data in all these different formats to get it out to all the places it needs to go. They have to send it to CDN networks. But if this were multicast, it would be, we would have the exact same latency as everyone watching. And for a live stream, doesn't matter at all. But like, how many of us have had that experience of like, you're like, maybe this is like a very New York experience, but like you're streaming like a sporting event on your like TV and you hear your neighbors cheering and you're like, what just happened? And then like 4 seconds later, it happens for your TV, but because your TV's streaming over the internet, it's slightly delayed. And so there's this crazy thing that like will happen in a New York building, like during a big sporting event, if you can tell who's got cable and who's got IPTV, because the IPTV is always a few seconds delayed.
Oh, that's awesome. That's actually such a good analogy. But that's that's hilarious.
Okay,
and you guys, is multicast? Is it something that you guys have uniquely developed, or it's something that you've taken and you've rebuilt in Web3, or is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great question. So multicast actually is like I wouldn't call it an old technology, but it's a technology that's existed for a while. It's actually how all of traditional finance high frequency trading works today. Okay. So if you think about it, the exchanges distribute pricing data via multicast feeds because it's much more fair. Everyone gets the data at the same time. But then also, like if I am like a Citadel and I'm running trade servers, I've got 1,000 trade servers trading on 100 markets in 20 countries. Well, what will influence the price movement of a particular stock or a commodity or something I'm trading? Yes, it's the price on the exchange, but it's also all the other orders. And so these algorithms are tuned enough that if my server in New York is saying, I want to buy $10 million of this particular stock, I have to send that data to my server in London too, because there might be some arbitrage event that it's now aware of because it knows this thing is going to move in New York. And so not only are they receiving multicast data from the exchanges, they're running private multicast feeds to basically update every single other server in the system about what they're doing in real time. And this is so much faster than you might just say, like, why don't we just throw it into one centralized server and everyone can read data from that server? Well, that introduces a ton of latency. And in high frequency trading, reducing latency is the name of the game. And so this is not like groundbreaking technology from the sense of like, we didn't invent multicast, right? What we're doing is we're applying it in a way that no one thought was possible until we did it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's sometimes all it takes, right? Is taking something that's known or that's already out there and then just adapting it to do something that no one thought it could. Because I mean, that's awesome. Like, that really, really is awesome. So looking forward to seeing that come out. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a thread to pull there too of just like, we're able to do this because 00 is a purpose-built network. So I think you can think of networks in like two different buckets. There's general purpose, which is the public internet. You can do a lot of things over the public internet. There's plenty of things available, but you can't do very specific things like multicast that you can do on a purpose-built network like 00. And a purpose-built network like these HFT firms have, and other businesses like AWS has its own network called Azure. Netflix has its own network for streaming. Like, they're all purpose-built networks to do very specific things extremely efficiently for that purpose. And so 00 is that network for blockchain-specific tasks, like global consensus and extremely efficient communication. In short periods of time. So I think like that's another helpful way to like think about this in terms of how exactly is it different and why is it different? Because it's purpose built, so we're able to do all these very specific things.
Yeah, it's amazing. I can't wait to see how this adapts or how this technology kind of grows from within what you guys are doing, and if other people take it and improve upon it as well. I mean, it makes complete sense that we'd need something like this. So it's really, really cool that you guys are doing this. Chris, I think there was a question here for Eden about some of the marketing stuff. I don't know if you want to take that one.
Yeah, 100%. I'll take that one. So, Eden, how does 00 balance being like technical while still accessible to a broader audience? Because you've obviously got, a lot of people who may not understand like the deeper terminology and stuff. So how do you take such a complex topic and kind of package it in a way that your normies and even your crypto bros, like, I mean, like when I first heard about 00, I was like, what, this is insane. How do you kind of go from this complex subject to, kind of simplifying it and breaking it down for everyone else?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's kind of the name of the game of crypto marketing. Like, I don't think this is like unique to 00. I think every protocol deals with this of like, we have this very niche specific part of the entire ecosystem that we are trying to solve a problem for. And that's why you have these like huge maps of like different categories of infrastructure and DePIN and kind of payments and what have you. Is kind of, you have to start with a category of like, okay, what is 00 categorically? It's a infrastructure project. So we're trying to create critical infrastructure that will increase performance for everyone operating in blockchain. And then, beyond that, I think I hinted at this earlier, but I think, being in this space for a while now, like when you're learning everything about blockchain and crypto, it can be a lot of information at once. And so the way I kind of solved for that was, again, just breaking it into like every part of the stack, and then figuring out like where does this product fit in with the stack to actually make blockchain accelerate where it is now to where it can be, or how do we make products easier to use or payments easier to send. And so I think categorically, when you think about where the project sits, and then really speaking to like, okay, what's the problem that we're solving for? We've realized that networking just hasn't really been part of the equation, I think, to date. Like everyone's been working on optimizing software and working up the stack, but no one's looked kind of below the blockchain up until 00. And so I think, how do you do this effectively? There's a large education gap of like, okay, well, what is high performance networking? And, how does the internet actually work? Most people don't know that it's subsea fiber cables underneath the ocean that actually are sending transactions. And, you're watching Netflix, and that's actually how it's happening. And so bringing the physicality of the network to life through visuals and videos is kind of a big priority over the next few months for us, but kind of like closing that knowledge gap of like, what is networking? What is high performance networking specifically? And how can we utilize that technology to accelerate blockchain by a decade or more is kind of the goal. But I don't think there's any perfect way to do this for the 00 project or any project in crypto. I think it takes a lot of creativity and like trying things and iterating and then trying things again. So I think for us, something that's resonated fairly well with the broader markets is this concept of a new internet for crypto. So it's like we have an internet that is a great marvel of technology, but it just wasn't built for blockchain. And like that's okay, but like we're gonna introduce something that is, and that can help just scale blockchain to where it needs to be. So kind of
amazing.
I half expected
that was a great.
Sorry, because I was going to say I half expected you to just say IBRL and then.
That too. No, but like things like our launch video, like more of that, right? And like telling the story of this technology, like how it impacts the entire industry. Is the main goal.
I think I just wanted to add on to what you were saying there. I think there's several core things that, as like someone who had very little kind of exposure and knowledge about 00 to kind of begin with, seeing IBRL everywhere and like understanding that, and then watching that initial promo video that dropped, like kind of gives you that aha moment and like simplifies it. And I watched that video and I was like, oh my God, where do I buy this? Like, how do I get 100 in my wallet? Anyway, sorry, I digress.
What's interesting about like IBRL is like that was definitely like it is kind of like the core mission of Solana, and of just kind of from every project that's working on Solana, like the goal is just performance and optimizing performance. So 00 actually helps to increase bandwidth in terms of increasing like a private dedicated network of 2 terabits at this point, 2.5 terabits of bandwidth, and then also reducing latency on the networking side of just extremely efficient fiber that is low jitter, low latency, high performance. So it's kind of like the most literal definition of IBRL is 00.
That
amazing.
definitely.
Seb, I'll let you continue with your questions.
We just have 2 more, and then we'll Dan will let you guys go. So I think one specific thing that is of interest is Malbec Labs. Love to learn a little bit more about Malbec Labs, because I know that's obviously been thrown around a bit. I think that's a little bit of a lesser known connection to you guys, and it's more of like the development arm. But anything you can share about Malbec Labs and what the kind of is the mission there also, like that's also a nice central place to kind of like expand across blockchains. I mean, Double Zero, the brand, will do that anyway. But anyway, what's the relationship and how did you guys, like, maybe even where did that name come from? It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this is your classic dual entity structure in crypto. So like you had Consensus and you have Ethereum Foundation, you have Solana Labs, you have Solana Foundation. That's basically the structure of this thing. So Malbec comes from the grape because Matteo, one of our co-founders, is based in Argentina. And so, you know, you need to figure out a name for your company, and why not pick a form of national pride, which is Malbec wine from Argentina.
And there he is, right there. There is Matteo.
Yes.
If you guys haven't, go give Malbec Labs the account a follow. It's Malbec Labs _XYZ. But that's awesome. No, I mean, it's obviously makes sense, right? You guys need to have a development arm there. Okay, and then I think last question is from Chris as well. And I think it's probably one that it kind of applies to quite a lot of people. So yeah, Chris, go ahead. Oh, you're muted.
Apologies, guys. My bad. Sorry about that. All right. So yeah, just kind of going back to the token. After the initial launch, how do you see the token's long-term kind of potential, especially as you go multi-chain? What's the value proposition for holders and validators across different blockchains? And what is the main reason for people wanting to buy the token?
Yeah, I mean, everyone should do their own research on tokens or any other assets that they're purchasing, but the token really is the fundamental unit of accounting on the Double Zero network. And so we need to be able to accept multiple currencies from multiple different types of networks. So Sol, Sui, Apts, Monad, whatever into the future. And so the way that this works is the fees paid by validators are swapped into the Double Zero token. A portion of that is burned. Another portion that is distributed out to the folks who are providing the fiber infrastructure as rewards on that system. And so RPCs and folks like that don't have sort of native digital asset revenue streams, they pay for that in 2Z. But at the end of the day, the main mechanisms for this, there's a whole, if you go to doublezero.xyz/journal, there's a whole economics write-up on how the token functions and works. But that's basically the function of it.
Awesome. And tell me, is it so in its current state now? You're talking about burning and stuff. Is it inflationary, deflationary? What's the kind of like token release like?
Yeah, there's no inflation on the protocol at the moment. It's something that there's a potential reserve right for in the future. We'll kind of see, but right now the curve has 10% of fees burned, the other 90% distributed out to contributors, and over the next year, that gap closes to about 50% burned and 50% distributed.
Wow.
If we do have inflation on the protocol, that inflation, I imagine, would be quite low. It would be something where it's like proportional to the burn rate or something along those lines. So it's certainly not a high inflation token, and there is no inflation on it at the moment.
Okay, awesome, perfect. Yeah, that's all from me. Seb, you got any more questions?
No, I just say I think that's a really good point that Austin made, right? Like if Double Zero wants to go cross chain, right, it makes sense to have a singular token for them to have payment made in, right? So it simplifies things a lot. I'm a happy holder. I'll be holding it for a very long time because I think what you guys are doing is obviously, it's a Herculean task, and I just think that I think you guys are the perfect team to do it. And I know you obviously had a no action letter as well, which was pretty epic. That's a pretty huge thing. I don't know, Eden, if you wanted to briefly touch on that. Yeah,
for sure. I also wanted to mention that I know people don't read today. A lot of people just don't read things. So we do have a lot of videos about our token economics that exist as well on YouTube and Twitter.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I think Austin does a great explanation of this, but I think just a general summary of the no action letter is essentially like you can go to the SEC today in 2025 and say, we want to do XYZ. Do you think it's okay if we do XYZ according to, you know, how this is going to work, and spell everything out and work very collaboratively with them. And, you know, as long as the token functionality matches, you know, everything that you say you're going to do, they will grant a no action letter for the token. I think this is one of the first in a few years for crypto project. So it's hugely monumental for blockchain in general, in terms of now there's kind of clarity on, okay, this is potentially a token design that does work. And, you know, is you know, not, I mean, it is something that can be potentially like multiplied by other projects as well. So yeah, it's definitely an important step for just bringing added clarity to regulation around tokens, and hugely positive for the blockchain space.
I mean, that's huge. If you think if we were talking 2-3 years ago, I mean, it would be like, never. There's no way in hell that anything like that would happen, you know? So no, I mean, that's amazing. And yeah, all in all, you know, I do very, very conscious of you guys' time as well. Like, I think we'll start closing it up here. Just really, really appreciate you guys coming on and giving us some time to kind of dive deep into 00 and what you guys are doing. I know you've done tons of these, and I'm sure you'll do tons more. And yeah, maybe in 6 to 12 months, we'll have a lot more to talk about. I'm sure we will. It might be cool to get you guys on for another show. But really, Austin and Eden, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you guys' time.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Just one more thing quickly before everyone ducks. Be sure to go and follow 00, follow Austin, follow Eden. Give us a follow on FaZe Labs as well, and you can follow me and Seb too. A little bit of shameless self-promotion there.
100%.
And yeah, Seb, I think after that you can get on with the Netrunner segment.
Yes. Yeah. Feel free, Eden, Austin, to jump off. We're just gonna chat a little bit at the end here and do a little bit of a Netrunner promotion thing. But
awesome.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers, Austin. Well, that was sick, dude. Honestly, there was so many
nice people.
Oh, I know, dude. They're absolute legends. But there's so many interesting things to talk about and just learn a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Like, I loved understanding just in terms of, like, I think there was a very, like, people were really, like, I also almost thought in the beginning, like, oh, we're gonna actually be building underwater cables. But it's interesting to think about it, how this space is rented, and yeah, I mean, very, very bullish on what they're doing.
Me too.
Let me see. Let me get this up here. I need to get this video, and then we can go in about this. But again, thanks for everyone who joined. It's actually pretty crazy.
Biggest turnout
ever.
Over 1,000 people. Incredible.
It's actually pretty.
Yeah.
insane.
Shout out to everyone who joined us today. Definitely one of the most fun streams that we've had to date.
By far. So I'll quickly do, while we have you guys here, I'll quickly do a short little presentation here. Nothing crazy. So before I play the video, right? As FaZe Labs, we have a few different products, right? We have Aero, Sentinel, and Netrunner. Aero is our Solana ecosystem stake pool. We delegate to about 170 plus Solana validators. And then Sentinel is our institutional grade validator infrastructure. We have SOC 2 Type 2 certification. We run validators for companies like Magic Eden, Portals, Hilo, things like that. But the biggest thing is we currently have released our platform, Netrunner Tax, which is a Solana tax tool. We're in private beta. And we're doing an awesome discount at the moment. It's 50% off. You can go head to our page at netrunner.tax, or sorry, Netrunner Tax at Netrunner Tax, or head to our website, netrunner.tax/private beta. And if you use code private50 at checkout, you'll get 50% off on our one sol opening deal. All of that information is on our Twitter page. I'll give you guys a little bit of I'll show you a little video that just gives you a little bit of insight into the app. And then, you know, if you want to also just DM us on our Twitter, or even at me as well, or Chris, and we can help you get set up. But without further ado, here it is.
Banger.
Man, that's hype, dude.
Yeah,
All right, well,
great stream today, Seb. Yeah,
thanks, Chris. You
I think
too.
we'll call it a day. Take care, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Cheers,
Peace.
guys. Bye.